fourth and final class in this series on the 12 spiritual laws of the universe. I hope everybody's doing well. If you want to catch up on these different laws, the links to the previous videos are in the description below. So I am Joshua the Psychic. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. I do psychic astrology readings, coaching, parties, gift certificates, and horoscopes for the current lunation can be found on my website. The link to that is in the description below. So our objective in this series of classes is to understand the 12 spiritual laws of the universe and apply them to manifest health, wealth, love, and happiness, or perfect self-expression. Really, whatever it is that we want, it's because we want to express ourselves. We want a lover, we want to express the love in our heart. If we want a child, we want to express nurturance, right, or parenting. If we want $1 million, we want to express wealth. We want to express ourselves through the things we buy, right? So it really comes down to perfect self-expression. So last class, and again, the link to this is in the description below, we spoke about the law of cause and effect, which is essentially karma. Every action has a consequence. The law of compensation, how energy flows in accordance to what we've done. And essentially, if you wind up being very generous and giving, you're going to get that back in some capacity. It might not be in the capacity that you want or expect, but you'll get it back. And the same thing, if you put a lot of toxicity into the universe, that's going to come back too. You'll be compensated for what you contribute. And the law of relativity, how everything is relative and can only be evaluated in relation to something else. And this law essentially teaches us to make sure that we're not making comparisons that undermine our sense of value and self-worth. You may want to compare yourself, if anyone, to who it was you were before, because you really don't know. You don't know where somebody is coming from, and it's probably not where you're coming from. So you can refresh on those if you wish. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the law of polarity, how everything has its opposite, and this law, how it speaks to the dual nature of all things. We'll talk about the law of rhythm, how everything has a natural cycle, evident in the ebb and flow of life circumstances. You might be under a dry spell now romantically, although you might be hot work-wise. So everything has a different rhythm and flows. Then we can talk about the law of gender, how everything has a masculine yang and feminine yin energies, which play a role in creation and manifestation. So essentially, you intuitively can tap into your feminine energy and you get the impulse. You receive an impulse, right? And then you use your masculine energy to execute, to take action. Likewise, use your masculine energy to take action on something, but then you need to let your feminine energy be in receptive mode to get the results that you wish for. Oftentimes what people do is they go really far on one side of things, too much allowing and not doing enough, or too much action and not allowing. So it's a delicate balance, and we'll talk about how that works in the universe. So the law of polarity is the first law we're going to talk about tonight. The law of polarity, everything has its opposite, making it part of the same whole. It's the same continuum. One extreme can only exist by virtue of the other. So that's why they say two things are really, seemingly opposite things are really the same, just at differing degrees. Just like with the South Pole and the North Pole, the distance between the South Pole and the North Pole is the same amount of distance between the North Pole and the South Pole. It operates on a continuum. And it'll be important to look at this because essentially we're going to be creating our reality oftentimes via contrast. When you have something you don't like, you know what you do like. When you have something you don't want, you know what you do. And you need that. You need that balance. So the law of polarity states that everything has an opposite, top and bottom, outside, inside, good and bad, and so on. So everything has its opposite. At the atomic level, the three primary particles are protons, which are positive charge, electrons, negative charge, and neutrons with no charge. And this duality in atomic structure binds all matters together. So everything has either a positive charge, a negative charge, or no charge at all. And the concept of equal and opposite maintains the balance in the universe. So we need to have opposites in order for things to coexist. You can't have order without chaos. You can't have good without bad, etc. So you want to just accept that, right? And as we said, the distance to the moon and back to Earth is the same. So it's a matter of it operates on a continuum. Duality is inherent. One side cannot exist without its counterpart as they form the whole. So oftentimes you'll see in relationships, extreme couples. One might be very type A and the other might be quite passive. Well, what's happening? She is dealing with her unlived self in her partner, and that's where the polarity is. She exists in that polarity, and her husband, her partner, is showing her her opposite. Hey, Kesmar, nice to see you. Thank you so much for joining. So we all have these opposites in life, and without contraries, there is no progression. So we need to have things be opposite. We need to have bad in order to get the good. We need to have bad relationships, bad jobs, perhaps, in order to get those good relationships and those new jobs. So to embrace the law of polarity, opposing powers create attractions. Negative circumstances catalyze positive outcomes. So what this means is essentially when something is going really, really badly, say, for instance, you see this a lot with health. When somebody gets sick, according to Abraham Hicks, they send out these rockets of desire to get really, really well. And by the time they return to health and they get over their illness, they're actually oftentimes stronger than they had been previously, right? So it's almost like the Wheel of Fortune. Is as soon as you find yourself at the bottom of the wheel, things then change, right? It's that duality. Recognize that the existence of one extreme implies the potential for the opposite, especially in terms of moods. If you find somebody, if you're somebody or you know somebody, and they can be really, really extremely, get really, really low and really, really depressed. Well, the good news is the other side of that, they can be really, really ecstatic and really, really elated. So it's all about a balance. If you can feel really, really terrible, you can also feel really, really awesome. Right? So if you have an extreme personality in terms of that, a lot of Scorpios, for instance, you'll see this. When Scorpios get mad, they get really, really mad. And when they get low and they feel really sad, it's heart-wrenching. It's really, nothing's worse than seeing a Scorpio upset or hurt, right? Because they're so sensitive. But Scorpio can also be the opposite of that. That level of depth and despair can actually be transformed into a higher level of ecstatic happiness. So if you're going through a rough time, know that that opposite exists, that you'll be able to experience the opposite of what you're going through, that choice is available to you thanks to the law of polarity. Choose the positive side of any situation, transforming challenges into opportunities. So one thing that you might want to just ask yourself is, say something's going wrong, really just saying, okay, well, how is this situation actually perfect exactly as it is? And it might not seem that way on the surface. It might be ridiculous to even look at it in that context. But if we create our own reality, we're actually not going to create something that is disadvantageous to us. So you always want to look and see, since circumstances are inherently neutral, what is the good aspect of this situation, right? Somebody cancels on you. You were looking forward to going with them on a date, let's say. Well, that opens up opportunities for you to get extra rest. It opens up opportunities for you to watch a TV show, whatever, get your work done, see a friend, meet somebody who's even better. So you always want to look at what's going on. And as we spoke about last class, you always want to get in the habit of labeling things. Great. Lost my job. Awesome. Got canceled on. Great. Got betrayed. Fantastic. Because then you're able to derive the positive from that. So all circumstances are inherently neutral. If you assign positive meaning to an inherently neutral circumstance, you're more likely to derive positive results. Otherwise, you're going to be in that dirty bathwater, bemoaning your fate, it's easier for you to just say, well, I created this. It must be something good about it, even though on the surface it looks terrible. So always assign positive meaning if you can. And thoughts and feelings create vibrations, leading to actions and outcomes. Positive energy attracts positive results and vice versa. So you want to make sure that you're thinking those thoughts about everything that are conducive to your end goal. So you can look at it like this. Every process begins with a thought, which is an energy impulse. And then what happens is, think of it as energy, right? So you have a thought and it shoots out all these energy lasers, let's say, right? So if you think about it that way, when you're starting something or you have something that's important going on, make sure you're feeding the universe good positive energy, right? Because it's like it's like these lasers that actually create things. Thoughts become things. So you want to, when you're starting a new process or a new project, anything that you're starting new, you want to think, okay, well, what's the best case scenario that this could be, that this could lead to? And then what will happen is you'll start thinking about that, and you're going to be shooting all of these lasers right out into the universe. And if you sustain and keep focusing on those lasers or one of those lasers, you're going to be able to yield a good outcome to yourself. So always think about when you're starting something new, even if it's something simple, like say you're going on a trip. Okay, well, what are your ideas about the trip? Well, maybe there won't be any traffic on the road to the airport. Maybe you'll breeze through TSA. Maybe you'll find that your flight arrives early, right? So it's all about really thinking those positive thoughts, because you are creating your own reality with the thoughts that you think, right? So think positive thoughts about everything, especially new projects, etc. So to manifest with the law of polarity, your attitude determines your polarity and what you're attracting. Maintain internal control to create your preferred mindset. So don't let external circumstances boss you around. Because the thing is, we have no control over external circumstances or other people, right? In fact, when we try to assert control over external circumstances or other people, there is usually a rebellion that takes place energetically. Meaning, if I say to my friend, will you stop being so negative? Chances are they're probably going to be even more negative because I'm resisting and insisting they become positive. What I need to do in that instance is be undisturbed by a problem, and it will fall away of its own weight, which we learned last class. So you only have really control of your attitude. You want to make that decision, especially I think if you're catching this live with Mars. We have a full moon in Aries coming up. Mars will be in Cancer. So we're really going to have to set the emotional tone that is based upon the outcome that we desire, right? Because it's going to be very, very strong emotional game if you're catching this in October 2024. It's very much, always is an emotional game, but we have two trines in the latest lunation, the solar eclipse in Libra, and in the next one, which will be the full moon in Aries on the 17th of October. So it's very much an emotional game. You want to just be cognizant of the thoughts that you're thinking and the tone that you're setting for everything. Oh, you tell yourself shopping is quick and easy? That's really good. Yeah. Why will it be so easy to shop today? Yeah, that's always a good thing to do. So desire equates to expectation, which in turn translates to achievement. So desire with doubt is horrible. Nothing's worse than desire and doubt. I mean, you want something, but you don't think it's going to happen. But desire with faith or trust is delicious. So you want to make sure that if you're desiring something, that you're also trusting, because you're always trusting in something. Even if you're trusting that things are going to go south, you're trusting in that. So you really want to focus on that desire. Seth actually says, or Jane Roberts, who channeled Seth, the Seth material, said that desire was action. So when we desire stuff, that does send out energy. It is action oriented. So your desire equates to expectation, which in turn translates to achievement. So this links desires directly to goals, drawing them nearer with anticipation. So when you're desiring something and you have complete faith that it's going to happen, it's going to help you to manifest more quickly. But desire with doubt, it's really bad and it doesn't feel good. Thoughts initiate as energy impulses, making the human body's central nervous system an unparalleled electrical system. So remember, thoughts create things and thoughts are contagious. So even the thoughts that you think about in terms of your body, I'm always in great health. I recover very, very quickly. My cells are dancing with joy, whatever it is. These things are very important because no matter what the thoughts we think, they're actually doing stuff to our bodies. That's why it's important to, going back to the law of one, wishing everybody love, joy, success, and happiness. Because when you're wishing that for other people, you're going to get that and receive that yourself due to not just the law of one, but all of the other laws too, or a lot of the other laws. The law of compensation, what you're putting out is what you're getting back. The law of cause and effect, which has to do with karma, etc. So you always want to just be in that very enlightened, happy, loving state, and then you're going to be completely in the clear no matter what you do. Thoughts can instantly change your vibrations. Abraham Hicks says that if you hold a thought for, I don't know, she changed it. I think it was 17 seconds or 63 seconds or something like that. Anyway, if you can hold onto a thought, that will change the vibration you're emitting, according to Abraham Hicks. So thoughts can instantly change your vibrations, influencing cellular activity and leading to actions that yield aligned results. So that's why you want to think the thoughts that feel good. Because what's happening is you're thinking a thought and that's creating electrical impulses. Are you thinking thoughts of, I'm getting bigger and everything's working out for me? Or are you thinking thoughts of, oh, I don't deserve this, or I never get what I want? And are you shrinking? Because you always want to expand. You always want to grow. Right? A lot of people have been taught that being big and growing makes them a target, right? So they feel more vulnerable and more like prey, so to speak, if they're big. So they just want to shrink and disappear. So they're not a target. But now that we're adults, we can be big. In fact, you kind of need to be big as an adult. The rules have changed. At one point, it may have been a matter of being small, and retracting actually gave you more safety. Now, as an adult with goals and ideals and things that you want to accomplish, you have to be big. So the rules of the game have changed, so to speak. So always want to think those thoughts that feel good. Remember, it's affecting your body. I would say that's particularly helpful in terms of your health. So you want to think, when you're thinking about your thoughts, what electrical current are you plugging into? So, if you're in a rotten mood, you got to allow yourself to release that from you. So a lot of law of attraction people, especially when you first start getting into law of attraction, you have a negative thought and you almost are trained to be like, oh, I got to pivot. Well, no, I mean, if you're mad, and you don't want to keep that anger inside of you. By the same token, you don't want to stay in that dirty bathwater too long. You don't want to allow it to become a part of your personality, but you want to allow yourself, like Pandora's box. When she opened her box, all of her ills escaped and all that remained was hope. So you want to make sure you're releasing anything negative, but then doing whatever you can to get in neutral territory as soon as possible. And when you're in neutral, plugging yourself in to what it is that you want. Are you plugged into the energy of abundance and love? Are you plugged into the energy of gratitude, which puts you in a state of receivership? Are you plugged into the vibration or the current of prosperity? Or are you plugged into the current of lack and scarcity? So it's just important to think about that, especially when you start your day. And it really comes with a decision. I'm going to plug myself into a state of gratitude. Think of what you want to invoke into your life. Do you need to plug yourself into the spirit of romance if you want more love in your life? Do you need to plug yourself into the spirit of financial prosperity, if you want more money in your life, what are you plugging into? Because it's all available to you. Everything. Because when you think of a thought, you're there, right? And if you focus there and you plug yourself into it, that's going to help create your reality. So law of polarity, one thing you could do to work with this law is identify a negative thought and visualize its positive opposite. So if you just got dumped, maybe it's a matter of you just got proposed to, is what you create in your imagination, right? Or if you just got fired, you just got this new job, your dream job, right? So just visualize its positive opposite, because the thing is, it's funny and ironic because of the law of polarity. When you're so to one extreme, when you're so far on one extreme, you're actually really close to its opposite. Just like we said with the Wheel of Fortune, when one finds himself back at the bottom of the wheel, before you know it, they're going around again and they're back up at the top. So you want to create an affirmation, perhaps. I'm loved and adored. If you got disrespected, for instance, I have billions of dollars. If you had a loss, what have you, etc. And you just want to see. I mean, we're going to be talking about robotic affirmations in the upcoming weeks. We're going to be doing these different classes that are going to help you to actually exercise these different principles in very, very simple ways. But robotic affirmations is like a robot. You just create a loop in your mind of, you could say, I'm happy, I'm healthy. And essentially you create that loop, and just like a robot, it's going on and on and on. Oftentimes people do it for like 10 minutes at a time. And if you have that going on in your head for 10 minutes, you're reprogramming yourself, which again, if you've seen my other classes, that's really what we're doing here. We're learning how to brainwash ourselves, because we all have been brainwashed, not necessarily intentionally by where we came from, but it happened sometimes intentionally, right? Because even before you were born, you're picking up on the energy that your mother is around, right? Because the mother is experiencing stuff when you're inside of her, and you're experiencing that too. Mother has a cigarette, she shares that cigarette with the child. The mother's dealing with trauma or has really, really negative beliefs, etc. She's also sharing that with the child. And then when you're born, you're completely a tabula rasa, so to speak, except for your past lives and what was going on in incubation, of course. But you are really, really open consciously. So then you're adopting all the beliefs of the people that are around you. And sometimes they're going to conflict. Supposing, for instance, your parents have different beliefs, right? So you have been brainwashed, and what you need to do is brainwash yourself so you can create the reality that is most conducive to your authentic self, so you can be who you really are, not who you felt you had to be in order to win approval, stay safe, be loved, etc. So, and then we have the law of rhythm. So everything has a natural cycle, evident in the ebb and flow of life's circumstances. So Jim Rohn, he's up there with like Brian Tracy. He's like a self-help guy, and he doesn't really, I mean, he works in spirituality in a roundabout way, but he doesn't really market himself as that. He's really more of a, creating a list and being disciplined. But anyway, Jim Rohn says that there are always seasons, and you're always going to have a new beginning in all the different areas of your life. It's going to be like spring, and there's going to be an apex of that like summer. And then certain things are going to fall away. And then you might have a winter in which things are really, really cold. For instance, like I think Shakespeare, Winter's Tale, you've reached the winter of our discontent, when things were really, really bad and discontented for that character, right? But Jim Rohn suggests that everything has a season. So in terms of love, you might be in summertime at the height of feeling these feelings of love, or it could be winter. You got betrayed, or it just went south and you're feeling really bad and there's nobody that appeals to you. Every date that you go on, it's like a nightmare. Well, you're in the winter season of your romantic life. And that can be the same in terms of work. Work might be really, really tough. It could be the same in terms of friends. And some winters are nice and quick, right? Easy winter. And some winters are very brutal and very, very cold and long and drawn out. So we all have these different seasons. And the trick is to not resist whatever season you're in. Because if you're resisting, you're going to find there's this boomerang effect that you're not going to like. What we resist persists. And what we insist on is also creating resistance. So you don't want to resist. You don't want to insist. You want to allow yourself to go with the flow. Because as the Bible says, right? To every season, of the birds and the Bible, to every season, turn, right? So always keep that in mind. Everything has its own rhythm, and it's a perfect universe. So balance. When one thing advances, another retreats. You might notice this, like work is really busy, and then your social life is dead. Or you have a whole bunch of dates that you're going on romantically, and then work is really, really, really quiet, or you're out of work, right? So there's always a balance, or usually is a balance in some capacity, even if we can't recognize it straight away. The swing of a pendulum on the left will be mirrored to an equal swing on the right. So if you're going through a rough time, remember, the opposite is also true. You just got to wait it out and bide your time. Nature continually strives for balance, evident in the planet orbits, the changing seasons, and the cycles of day and night. So when you honor the natural rhythm of things, like, oh, okay, well, it's slow at work. Oh, okay, well, my calendar is really slow in terms of social life. Or the opposite. Oh, geez, I've never been busier. You've got to go with the flow and allow yourself to honor the rhythm. And ideally, what you want to do is honor your own rhythms. There are going to be times in which you're probably going to be able to get a lot of work done. And then there's going to be times in which you really don't feel like it. And if you have the luxury, you always want to go with your rhythms, because what usually will happen if you wind up working really, really, really hard, and then you're just really a slug, lazy for a period of time, then you're going to really, really work hard again. But you needed that laziness. You needed that slug time in order to perform again, right? So honor your own rhythms and honor the natural rhythms inherent of the different areas of your life, i.e., it might be springtime in terms of your friends or romance, and it might not be. It might be fall or winter. So honor those seasons. So life is a series of natural and spontaneous changes. Do not resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. So what you want to do is allow yourself to just let things be. Because honestly, if what we resist persists, which we do, if you're in a season that you do not like and you're resisting it, when are things going to get better? When will the tide change? You're resisting the flow of things, the rhythm of things. And when you're resisting it, it's going to last longer. That's why what we said before, when you are undisturbed by something, the situation will fall away of its own weight. It's when we're insistent or resistant about the way things are that it will perpetuate longer. So if you're going through something and you don't like it very much, the more you can ignore it or focus on other things, the knot will untie itself and you'll be able to get over it more quickly, more expeditiously. But you don't want to wear yourself out resisting it, because if you do, it's probably going to last longer. And you want your winters to be really, really, really quick. You want your winters to be very, very fast. And the way to do that is to not mind them and do what you can to distract yourself. So embracing the law of rhythm. Life consists of highs and lows, and realizing the impermanence of lows is vital. This too shall pass. So whenever you're going through something, tell yourself that this too shall pass. And although you might really be feeling in a certain way, well, it's temporary. Feelings are temporary. So remember that the lows are impermanent, that this too shall pass. All experiences, including challenges, offer lessons and opportunities for growth. So remember, there might be a reason why you're going through whatever might be difficult for you. It might be preparing you for that next stage, right? You might be about ready to turn a corner. Maybe you're changing your relationship story, for instance, and you needed that one last relationship with that real big jerk for you to finally make the decision, I'm not tolerating this ever again. Or it's that job with that terrible boss. I'm never working for somebody like this ever again. And what happens is, because of that terrible situation, you sent out that rocket of desire of never being with a jerk again or never working for a jerk again, etc. And if you hadn't had that terrible situation, perhaps you wouldn't have doubled down on that decision that you made. So negative circumstances have a very, very important place. So, for instance, say you ask for certain things. Well, the universe is going to give you what you ask for in the easiest way possible, the law of least resistance. And sometimes that is you need to commit, you need to double down. So, if things are going poorly for you in one area, look at it objectively and say, why might this be happening for my greater good? And then you'll realize, okay, it pushed me to that point. The universe perhaps was testing me. Universe, they say, doesn't really test us. We test ourselves. But you want to just look at things and be like, oh, okay, what is the universe trying to teach me here? And what do I need to do to make sure I go to that next level? Because it might be a test that you're giving yourself. So you want to embrace the idea that every event, even difficult times prepare you for the desired future. Maybe some people are really, really broke before they get really, really rich, so they don't squander the wealth when they get it. If you're having to really watch your finances and follow a budget when you're poor, well, guess what? You're going to actually be able to hold on to all that money you make in the future, right? So you always want to remember that everything that's happening, it's probably in your best interest and preparing you. If anything, it's providing that contrast. Think of the law of polarity, right? So Napoleon said, I see only my objective. The obstacles must give way. So again, you want to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. That's the only main rule in law of attraction. Our lives are created by two things: the pictures that we paint in our heads and the things that we say to ourselves. So you want to paint those pretty pictures. What could go great today? What's my ideal scenario? What would be awesome? And what thoughts, what things can you say to yourself that are very, very positive that you want to come true, right? So you want to keep your objective front of mind like Napoleon and not allow yourself to be deterred by circumstantial evidence that makes you say, this is never going to happen. Or look, that's not happening. He didn't text, or I didn't get that job. Well, yeah, he didn't text. Maybe this is because the shoe's going to be on the other foot and he's going to be really into you. And you're not going to always want to text 5 minutes after you receive a text, right? Or maybe it's a matter, again, of the universe is giving you these distractions, these things that you don't want, so you can focus on what you do. So keep your eyes on the prize and do whatever you can to remember circumstances are inherently neutral. If you can assign positive meaning to that inherently neutral circumstance, you're going to derive positive results. But you want to keep your eyes on the prize and be undeterred. The obstacles must give way. You don't want to focus on what's going poorly. So if you're in a job that you don't really like, well, focus on finding a new job. And I would also say in the realm of relationships, the beginning of relationships are really interesting, and they're very, very positive usually, right? Because what we're doing is we're looking for things to love about the person. We're like, this person seems really, really great. What else can I adore about them? But then something happens, right? They make a mistake or they do something that's not cool. And then we get cagey and then we say, what else is wrong with this person? So we get defensive and we start looking, what else am I not seeing? How else is this person flawed? And then in looking for it, seek and ye shall find, you solicit that from that person. So what you look for, you're going to find. And that's why, even in relationships, you want to do whatever you can to look for things to appreciate about the person, things that you value. Look for what you want to see, and that's going to solicit it. Because everybody is a reflection of you. Everybody in our life is ourselves pushed inside out. So if you're dealing with somebody, you're looking for them to say, for instance, reject you, and you're like, this person might not like me, doesn't feel this way, doesn't feel that way. What are you doing? But really, you're projecting your insecurities onto him. And the problem with that is you're sending everybody telepathic signals. So if you're in a job interview and you're saying, oh, geez, I don't think this person is going to really like my portfolio, or I don't think that she's going to think I'm qualified for the job, you're sending her that message. And you're looking for her to be thinking that because you're defensive. And what are you going to do? You're going to solicit that from her. So you always want to make sure that you are in this telepathic conversation. So you want to get your own mindset first and focus on what you want. Just have a talk with yourself and say, okay, what am I focusing on? What do I want? And then the obstacles must give way. So one of the things that you can do, what I would do, visualize the seasons. I'm probably going to create some kind of audio for you guys for this. This could be really cool, but essentially you want to allow yourself to imagine the spring, the seasons. So you can imagine the springs, you're standing in a vast meadow with the green grass, and you feel the moist earth beneath your feet and the colorful blossoms and that smell of growth and renewal. And then you can go to summer, right? And now you can feel in your mind's eye and flowing through your body and your brain, the vibrant, full of life, blue sky, right? The golden rays of sunlight, the flowers in full bloom. And then you can visualize the fall, how the meadow transforms again, and the trees, the foliage, right? Gold, red, and orange. You want to feel the rustling of, or hear the rustling of fall leaves and feel that cool, brisk breeze, right? And then you want to visualize winter, how the meadow is blanketed with snow, how the world is peaceful, how the sky is overcast, and the world is illuminated by the snow's reflection. So if you're allowing yourself to visualize those seasons, you're going to get a very, very strong understanding of not just the four elements, which is really important too for you to manifest. So this exercise will help you to manifest, but also it's going to help you to understand and accept that everything is cyclical. Everything changes. So if you can allow yourself to go with the flow of whatever season you're in and make the most of it, right? You should do whatever you can, even if it's really, really tough to fall in love with the winter. Try to fall in love with the winter, even though it can be brutal cold out, depending on where you are, or the sun. Fall in love with the summer, even if you might not always like it. Do whatever you can to really fall in love with these seasons, because when you're doing so, you're falling in love with the four elements. And the more in love you are with the four elements, the easier it's going to be for you to manifest whatever it is that you want, in part because you're not going to be resisting whatever season you're in, because you're recognizing, oh, it's spring for romance. How nice. Oh, it's winter in regard to work. Okay, well, this too shall pass, etc. So you can do that with, and then at the end of your seasonal exercise, you can bring all the seasons together in your mind's eye, right? And then that'll be really helpful. So other tricks for the law of rhythm that I wanted to share with you that could be cool. When it's a new moon, we'll have the next new moon, I believe in November at this point, because we just had our solar eclipse. So we're going to have a full moon. Your next new moon will be on the 1st of November, if you're catching this live, 2024. So to work with the law of rhythm, begin a new goal or intention during a new moon, whatever that might be, and build upon it as the moon waxes and release what no longer serves you as the moon wanes. So after the full moon, so that's what we do. If you're following me in my other videos, that's what we do. We usually set intentions for the new moon and release things for the full moon. Caveat would be eclipse season. We really don't light candles or work on any manifestation techniques during eclipse season. It might help you to dance to the rhythm of music that you really love and let the music guide your movement. Let yourself hear the music and let your body just naturally flow in sync with it. You might be surprised with what your body does. And recognize that energy ebbs and flows instead of pushing against it. As we said, schedule tasks based on your natural energy rhythms. So that's why it's always nice to create a nice buffer for your schedule. So if you reach a point where you really don't feel like doing something, you shouldn't really have to do it. Because that's going to, at the end of the day, they say that's what makes you stay young, by enjoying the moment and enjoying the things that you do. And you could affirm, I flow with the natural rhythms of life, making the most of each moment. You could say that. You could spend some time in nature observing. You could practice rest and action. I think one Chinese proverb said, motion and rest. The keys to manifestation can be written on the human thumbnail, motion and rest. And you could visualize a pendulum. And that will help you perhaps appreciate the downtime or challenges, knowing they're building momentum for the upswing. So other tricks for your law of rhythm. And you may remember this Bible verse: to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And then you can listen to the bird song too. To every season. So that could be fun. So keep that in mind. If you're going through something, know that it's going to pass. You're going through something rough. And appreciate the good times as much as possible. So to manifest with the law of rhythm, winter is here for rest, rejuvenation, and an opportunity to prepare for the next season of harvest. And again, you could have a winter into summer. You could have a winter into spring. It's metaphorical. Don't resist. Harmonize with these rhythms. Align with your life's rhythms and utilize them as opportunities for growth. Don't buck the current. If something's not working, move on to something else. I think with Jupiter and Gemini, we should really realize that if you're catching this live in 2024, fall 2024. You know, the cool thing about Gemini, there are a lot of cool things about Gemini, but if a Gemini asks you to do something, they say, hey, you want to go out to dinner? If you say, oh, I'll let you know, or you're lukewarm, but they're not going to ask you again. They've given the invitation. They're wise enough to know that there's plenty of other things to do. That if you say no, that's fine. They'll just move on. And I think that we need to also do that in terms of things that are in our lives. Okay, if nothing's happening romantically, I'm going to move on. I'm going to focus on work. Nothing's happening on work, maybe I focus on my friends. Stuff like that. So honor those rhythms. Manage negative experiences within their time frame and avoid carrying them forward. So you don't want to say you have a bad phone call that you had the worst day of your life at the end of the day. No, you had a 5-minute phone call that was really bad. But unless you stew in that, you know, that's why Abraham Hicks has this thing with segment intending. So you're eating your breakfast and you're drinking your coffee and you're watching the news. That's a segment, right? And then the phone rings. Well, that's going to be another segment. So what is your intention when the phone rings? I'm pointing to the phone as if you have a landline. Maybe you do. I hope you do. But ideally, we all would have landlines, right? It wouldn't be right there in front of us. Anyway, the phone rings and you enter a new segment. In that segment, are you intending that you're going to be thrown around by whatever somebody says to you on the other line? Or are you going to say, I'm going to maintain a very, very fun morning, irrespective of whatever happens on the phone, right? So we're always entering these new segments. So if you have a bad segment on that phone call, you don't want to bring that bad segment back to your breakfast. You want to get off that phone call. And if it's a bad segment, then you want to say, okay, well, that sucks. That was terrible, but I'm not going to let it ruin my day. So keep them within their time frames. Don't have a bad 5 minutes and say, this is a terrible day. Everything went wrong. Well, no, it didn't, but it could if you let it affect you. Instead of prolonging negative feelings, reduce their energy by focusing elsewhere. Let the pendulum swing back naturally. So, again, if you are unbothered by a situation, it's going to fall away of its own weight. And then you won't have to deal with it. And then we have the law of gender. And this is very, very important. I think that, I mean, all the laws are obviously really important, but I think this one can save you a lot of time. So everything has a masculine yang and a feminine yin energy, right? Which play a role in creation and manifestation. So in Jungian psychology, the anima is the man's inner feminine side, while the animus is the inner masculine side of a woman. And according to Jung, both play roles in how individuals relate to their unconscious feelings and to the opposite gender. They also have a profound impact on dreams, fantasies, and even the type of partner one is attracted to. So, if you... Hello, Idiot King. Nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. Uranus is right. Yes, thank you for joining. So, what's interesting about this anima-animus thing, if there's somebody that's really, really bothering you, either maybe they're hyper feminine or maybe they're hyper masculine, and that's really ripping you apart. Why? Because everything's a reflection, because you're at war with that hyper masculinity or that hyper femininity within yourself. You're going to attract people who show you it, who you do not like. That's why it's very, very interesting when we see people that we don't like and we're dealing with people that upset us or trigger us or whatever. That's an opportunity for you to say, okay, this is a war within me. What part of myself am I at war at? What part of myself am I rejecting? Am I rejecting my hypermasculinity? And now I'm attracting hypermasculine people who push all my buttons. Or is it the opposite? Am I rejecting my vulnerability and my feminine side? And that's why this person who's showing vulnerability is really bothering me, because I'm not accepting of that vulnerability in myself, right? So that's why it's very important to honor the male and the female part of all of us, because we all come from man and woman, even though our bodies, right, may be masculine or may be feminine. Still, we have both within us, right? You have been unburdened by things that have been, I'm very glad to hear that. Me too. Me too. Further, Jung wound up saying, which I really love, that every man carries within him the eternal image of a woman, not the image of this woman or that woman, but a definite feminine image. And this image is fundamentally unconscious, a hereditary factor of primordial origin engraved in the living organic system of the man, an imprint or archetype of all the ancestral experiences of the female, a deposit, as it were, of all the impressions ever made by woman. So Jung here is suggesting that every man has an unconscious image of femininity shaped by deep-rooted biological and psychological influences from his ancestral experiences with women. So it's his lineage. So essentially, all the stuff that wound up happening, right, in his ancestral line, right? So we're talking about things that he doesn't even know about, right? The things that have been passed down ancestrally. So the image of woman, in terms of the stories that are about women or what women are, that is part of his lineage, and it's part of him now because it was inherited, right? His mother had an image, for instance, his mother may have had an image of well, let's look at it the opposite way. Say his father had an image of a woman, and then his father had an image of a woman, and then his father had an image of a woman, and then his father. So it's all about those images that are being actualized by the actual women that show up in these lives, right? And you could also look at it in terms of past lives, in terms of why did this person come into this world with this ancestral line, with this archetype of the woman in his head. Well, that's a karmic thing, but it's also part of his ancestry. So that's why it's important for us to do whatever we can to heal the past, so we're not making these assumptions that are not necessarily advantageous to us. So if a man has an image of a woman, think of Hamlet, frailty, thy name is woman, right? If he has that image and his ancestral line, his lineage shows all women are weak and frail, then that's going to become an apparency, and that's going to be his reality. And in fact, he might reject not just the frail woman, but the woman who is not frail, right? So just keep that in mind in terms of how we need to make peace with the different aspects within ourselves. Because if you're having an issue with the opposite sex, most likely it's your own issue, your issue with your anima or your animus. Oh, thank you, MP. I didn't know that was you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So understanding the law of gender. So this is all creation. We need male and we need female to manifest. So essentially, you could look at it this way. The masculine impregnates the subconscious. So the conscious mind is your masculine side. You say, I want a new job, or I want a new relationship. And you visualize that. And what you do is you're impressing that thought into the subconscious. You're seeding that thought. So the conscious mind is the masculine, the subconscious is the feminine, and then what you create is the baby, so to speak. So the masculine side, your conscious mind impregnates, for lack of a better word, your subconscious, and then you create your reality. But you need that gestation period, right? The subconscious, think of it again with that being that feminine energy. It's very, very receptive, but just like a baby, you don't have sex with a woman and then straight away you get a baby. There's a gestation period, right? For all forms of life, be it babies or animals, there's always a gestation period. And the same thing when the conscious mind is impregnating your subconscious, might not be straight away. So you got to allow yourself to, again, go with your natural rhythms. So everybody possesses both masculine and feminine energy, regardless of their physical sex. I mean, it's just very interesting. And even in terms of sexuality, there are plenty of lesbians who are very much like, very feminine women. And there are plenty of straight men that are like little girls on the inside. It's very fascinating. So it is all a matter of there being some kind of balance, right? So striking a balance between the masculine and feminine is key to navigating various circumstances and conditions in life. So we can look at how it can be problematic. It can be problematic when you're looking to achieve your goals, right? For instance, an easy example of this was Hillary Clinton when she ran for president back in, I think it was 2016, right? She wanted it too much. And she was so strong about it and so not letting up and allowing it. She didn't get it because she didn't receive it. In fact, toward the end of the election, she started getting sick and was wobbly and falling down and not really stable. Why? Because she was not balancing her masculine and feminine energy. She wasn't allowing herself to let go. She was too masculine and didn't receive it. And really, you can look at that metaphorically for all the things that we want. Yes, you can take your action, but you got to back up. So you've got to utilize your masculine energy to do what you need to do to get what you want done. But then you got to balance that out. If you are super aggressive in going after what you want, you need to be super passive in receiving what you asked for, which is not easy because in your head, you might be like, I have to keep pushing if I want to get this. But really, you can push, but remember, you got to balance that. So the masculine needs to be balanced with that. Good night, Murphy. Nice to see you again. So you want to balance that. So whatever it is that you're looking for, remember, you got to be masculine, but you also got to be feminine. You got to put it out there and take your action for sure, but you also need to know when to let go and receive and trust and allow. So many people I see not manifesting what they want because they don't know how to work. They're not comfortable in that feminine vibration, and therefore they're not allowing their manifestations to manifest. So you always want to balance that. Effectively manifesting the law of gender means aligning the energy of the situation, ensuring a harmonious pull from both energies. So different scenarios may require a different balance. So it depends on who you're dealing with, right? There are some people that you can be very direct with, right? And you can say, this is what you need to do. And you can be very, very pointed in your communication and very, very aggressive. And that's going to work. It's going to work for you to be masculine in disposition for those people who take to that well. But there are other people who are very defensive and they don't like being spoken to in a way that can be brusque or a little bit too strong. In such an instance, you would have to pull upon your feminine energy in telling them what to do, for instance. So you always want to remember that there's going to be certain things that you need to be a real man about if you want to achieve it. And there's going to be certain things you need to be real woman, very woman-like in order to receive it. So it's about that balance between the masculine and the feminine. And the more you can balance it, everything in your life is going to be easier. And it's very, very tough because, well, we're taught and socialized, if we're men, to be masculine, and if we're females, to be feminine. And you'll find, in order to get really anything done, it does not work that way. You need both. Additionally, this is some really cool quotes I wanted to share with you. Each man has his feminine side and each woman has her masculine side. It's important to use discipline with intuition and to use intuition with objectivity. So true. Virginia Woolf said, different though the sexes are, they intermix. In every human being, a vacillation from one sex to another takes place. And often it is only the clothes that keep the male or female likeness, while underneath the sex is very opposite of what is above. So here Virginia Woolf is saying that men are actually more like women archetypically than women are like women. It's just their clothes. Shakespeare said, there's neither male nor female, but both in one person. Yogi Bhajan said, male is logical, female is intuitive, and there's a male and female part of every psyche. Deepak Chopra said, the dance of the masculine and feminine is a dance of opposites, and it requires that we first separate one from another and then come together in a mutual embrace. It almost is like how we have to integrate our light with our dark. And Swami Vivekananda said, the best man is he who best knows how to call on the goddesses in himself. That's pretty deep. The best man is he who best knows how to call upon the goddesses in himself. And perhaps, again, of course, the opposite. The best woman is she who knows how to call upon the gods within herself, right? Because you contain it all. And you don't have to do it alone, right? If you are exhausted, there's probably an imbalance. Maybe you're not being enough with a woman, and that's why I think a lot of people get sick, because they don't know how to relax and they want a break, but they don't feel they can give themselves a break. They're not comfortable being in that feminine mode. But if I'm sick, well, I have no choice. Completely out of my hands. I have to be passive. I have to do nothing. I have to be in receptive mode. But there are easier ways for you to be taken care of than being sick. So the more that we can realize that you have a right to have all of your needs met, that you need not get sick in order for you to be loved, right? That you deserve love, even if you're really, really healthy. But you got to sometimes assert and say, look, I need a day off, taking a day. I need help from you, whatever it might be, right? So you're not putting yourself in a position in which you're vulnerable because you're not comfortable with your vulnerability, right? So be vulnerable. And by the opposite, you don't want to put yourself in a position in which you have to fight really, really hard because you're too passive all the time. So just balance, right? You want to balance that male and female energy. Typical masculine energy traits: focus, determination, logic, pragmatism, goal orientation. Typical feminine traits: intuition, empathy, creativity, communication, and nurturing. So to achieve a sense of wholeness and balance in life, it's vital to tap into both energies. So embracing the law of gender. The divine feminine within us receives intuitive messages from our divine source, while the divine masculine propels us to act upon these intuitive signals. So feminine, you're open and receptive to energies from the universe. You get an intuitive flash, you receive insight, and then you execute with your masculine energy. Manifesting the optimal life necessitates a dance between the patience, feminine, and persistence, masculine. So we got to be both. And it's sometimes tricky to determine, am I being impatient or am I asserting myself? Right? So you have to really judge and you have to weigh, am I being too impatient about this, or am I doing what I need to do in order to get the job done? So it's a delicate balance. Overemphasizing either the masculine or the feminine leads to imbalance. The key is to a fulfilling life is to harmonize, not marginalize these energies. And every seed, whether in nature or concept, as we said, undergoes a gestation period before it can manifest. So when you're trying to manifest something in your life, tend to it, but don't rush the process. Tend to your garden, plant seeds that you want, and then nurture them, but don't rush them. You wouldn't, if you had a chickie and an egg, you wouldn't crack open the egg before it was ready, right? So trust your process. In fact, the big thing is the more you can fall in love with your process, the results are going to take care of themselves. That's why it's important that you're doing what you love. So the journey is of love and the journey is of pleasure, because you cannot achieve a pleasure at your destination unless your journey is also pleasurable, right? So enjoy your process. Think of the analogy of a seed, masculine, that requires soil, feminine, to grow. Ignoring or neglecting one component halts the growth process. So honor your process. To manifest with the law of gender, strike a balance between the energies of action, masculine, and the allowing and patience of the feminine. More focus equals more mental energy, leading to faster growth. So it's crucial to channel your focus on specific goals rather than dispersing your efforts. So if you're wanting something, it's good for you should have it all. No doubt about it. You should have it all. No time for less, right? But it's going to help you if you zone in on what it is that you want, even in terms of your goals. I think less is often better, because otherwise all your mental energy is going to be dispersed and there's not going to be that power that you get with focus. Focus equals power, right? And what we focus on, we become. So don't disperse your energies if you can help it. Achieve the equilibrium between taking inspired action and receiving is the manifestation sweet spot where desires come into fruition. So you don't want to always be doing. You got to let things be. Let it be. Don't move the body, right? And think of the analogy of a seed. Masculine requires soil, feminine to grow. We spoke about this. Ignoring and neglecting one component halts the growth process. So honor your process. So, for instance, here's some techniques for the law of gender to manifest what it is that you want. For wealth, you might want to take inspired action for more wealth, but also let go and expect and allow your intentions to manifest. You might want to, for health, actively eat right and exercise. And then, before bed, ask the universe to restore all your cells to perfect health as you sleep. That'll put you in receptive mode, right? You'll be releasing resistance and you'll be allowing the universe to heal you. For love, you can take initiative and do things for your partner, but also ask them for help. I need help. Will you do this for me? Ask all others if they need you to listen or give advice. Sometimes, especially men, when women come to men with a problem, they're fixers and they want to solve it. Like logically, to a man's mind or a masculine mind, there's a problem. We should solve this. But oftentimes, sometimes people don't want to be told how to solve their problem. They don't want to fix. They just want to be heard. Sometimes people just want an audience. They just want somebody to listen. And for the masculine mind, that doesn't make any sense. What's the point of that? Because that masculine mind doesn't realize the need for compassion, for an audience, etc. To be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be respected for those vulnerabilities, for those feelings. So sometimes it's easier to really just ask, like, do you need a sounding board or do you need advice? Because sometimes if somebody is coming to you, you don't know, right? They might just need somebody to listen. They don't want you to fix their problems. I don't need advice right now. I need you to just listen to me. And it's sometimes good if you can gauge that or even ask. And perfect self-expression, you might want to spend some time appreciating and taking in others' work and then create your own. Like reading a story and then writing a story, or looking at some art and then creating your own art, right? That's a nice balance of that feminine receiving the impressions and then the masculine creating your own. So one affirmation I would definitely say, I give thanks for my permanent happiness, my permanent health, my permanent wealth, and my permanent love. So this, if you keep saying it over and over again, you're going to create within yourself a higher level of satisfaction in these life areas, right? It's your baseline. You're going to raise your baseline if you can say this over and over again. I give thanks for my permanent happiness, my permanent health, my permanent wealth, my permanent love. That might be very helpful. So thank you all for joining me. Does anybody have any questions before we conclude tonight? We wrapped up our 12 spiritual laws, and we'll talk further about these in smaller segments. And you let me know if you have any questions. You can put them in the chat, or you can actually put them in the comments. And as you know, my website is psychicsun.com. If there's anything I can do for you, just check out my website, and I'll be able to help you. So it doesn't look like anybody has any questions, but I do appreciate everybody joining live or catching the replay. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And have a wonderful week, everybody. And I hope you enjoyed these 12 spiritual laws. Oh, you're so welcome, Casimar. You're so welcome. I will see everybody tomorrow if you're catching this live for This Week Astrology at 1 p.m. Eastern. The link to that is in the description below. I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.